we do have a series of questions that I'll go ahead and start off with the panelists. My name is Pierre Nguyen. For students at Irvine Valley College, call me Professor Pierre. I have the pleasure of introducing all of our esteemed panelists today, many of whom happen to be my former students. So it's good to see a lot of these students again, and then to see them in their respective professions. So the first question, I don't know if it's really a question, but it's please introduce yourself, your name, what your major was, the program or school that you are affiliated with, or the number of programs or schools that you're affiliated with. And yeah, that's about it. So I will go ahead and we'll begin with Alice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alice. I am a general dentist. I just graduated last summer from the USC Herman Ostrow School of Dentistry. I guess I have a interesting perspective where I just finished dental school and I'm experiencing now the real world as a fresh graduate. So that's a perspective that some may be interested in. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Catherine, were you able to hear the first question, which was introduce yourself, your name, your major, the schools or programs that you're attending or have attended?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Professor Pierre. Hi. My name is Catherine. I actually graduated with my master's in nursing from UCLA in 2024. So I'm also kind of in the same boat as Alice, sort of like a new graduate. I've been working as a registered nurse for about a year and a half-ish. But yeah, happy to be here as well.
Thanks. We'll go over to Ignacio.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Ignacio. I am a third-year medical student. My undergraduate major was in nutrition dietetics. So I made a bit of a switch over, but nutrition has a lot of like the similar like prereqs as like a lot of like the bio and like chemistry majors that I know most people that go into medical school usually major in that.
Great, thank you. And then Michael.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael. I'm a physical therapist. My original major was actually in psychology, and then I branched out and went into physical therapy. There was very little overlap between those classes, so I had to take a lot of extra classes. But I did graduate with a doctorate of physical therapy from Chapman University in 2024.
All right, thank you. So as you can see, we have fairly newly minted professionals in their field, and so we wanted to gather these individuals here to give you all, the participants, an idea about the path that they have taken and what they needed to do to get to where they are. And so we'll go into the next question. If the participants, if you're looking at the questions, it's what made you choose your specific healthcare profession? And then I'll add a little bit to that one. Were there other professions that you did consider, and why did you, or how did you end up choosing the one that you're in right now? So we'll start with Ignacio.
Yeah. I considered quite a few different professions beforehand. So originally, pursuing my like education, nutrition, dietetics, I wanted to be a registered dietitian. I got pretty far. Like I did my undergrad, did my master's, and did part of an internship. But I just realized I wanted to be able to like do a little bit more. And I actually spent some time working as a therapy aide, and I was considering like physical therapy as well too. But I ended up like taking some years off and I was working for the WIC program, which is a it's like a nutrition education program for like low income families. And I really loved working with the parents and like their kids. And it just so happened that the clinic I worked in was like in a like medical like center where we had the pediatricians like right across next door. And so being able to work with them a lot, that kind of led me to want to like pursue medicine, just being able to help the families in that way. So that's kind of what led me there. And I forgot to mention earlier, but I currently go to medical school at UC Irvine.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Um, we'll go Catherine. What made you choose your specific healthcare profession? And then were there other professions that you considered, and how did you end up with where you're at now?
Let's see. A really long time ago, I was similar to Michael. I actually graduated with the bachelor's in psychology as well. I kind of I had like a small inkling of like I want to help people. I like studying people. I like knowing things about people. And obviously, I went and decided to go into marketing. So I worked in marketing and advertising for almost, I would say, 4 to 5-ish years. And then COVID hit, COVID. So that kind of pushed me. Well, there were a lot of instances, I guess, when I was working at the ad agency. There was a moment where I think we were all clapping for Toyota because they were our main client. And then I kind of had like a aha moment of like, people are like dying. So that kind of started it picking at my brain, and then COVID kind of gave me the opportunity to be able to not only get a job at the hospital, but also go to back to school because I guess everything was online. So yeah, that's kind of I went like in a really roundabout way of getting into healthcare, but I think it was ultimately what I really wanted to do. I kind of just didn't know nursing was like a great route that you could go into, if that makes sense.
Uh, Michael, what made you choose your specific healthcare profession, and what other professions did you consider before settling on, not settling, but before choosing the profession that you're currently in?
I'd say I never really actually considered myself being in the medical field, either as a doctor or physical therapist or anything. It kind of just happened to me. There was a period of my life when I was like 21 years old where I developed rheumatoid arthritis, so I couldn't close my hands or anything before then. So I was having a lot of trouble opening doors, holding pens, walking down the street. Um, I saw some rheumatologists. They started me on some medication, and I started exercising a lot more too. So since then, I'm off of my medications and I'm managing everything just through exercise alone. Still a little bit of stiffness. I'm at like 90%, but that was what really drove in the fact that doing exercise and doing the right things with your body, you can really manage a lot of conditions. And I wanted to share that information with other people too. So I went into physical therapy.
Fantastic. Thanks. And then Alice, what made you choose your specific healthcare profession, and what other professions did you consider? And I know that you were my student before, so I know that there was another path that you had. So if you could share that, I think that'd be really interesting for a lot of these participants in the room to hear about.
Yes, so I mean, well, I have a lot in common with, like Ignacio, Catherine, Michael, in that it took a while for me to find this path. So I'm a very non-traditional student. I already had a Bachelor of Music, and I'd worked for several years already as a barista. I was primarily a barista. I was a piano teacher, so nothing really at all related to healthcare. But I did know I wanted to go into healthcare. But I wanted something a bit more focused in scope than medicine. And since, I work with my hands a lot as a pianist, I wanted something that would let me continue to do so. So that led me to dentistry. And I did a dental assisting program to get my feet wet, to see what it's like to be in that environment, to work in a dental office. And I ended up having a really great time. And the rest is history. Somewhere in the middle of that, yes, I did have my midlife crisis. I was like, oh, do I want to go into physical therapy? I considered that too. Do I want to go into something like ecology? I had many interests, but healthcare was something that just kept pulling at me. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
It's great. It's good to hear all these stories and to allow people to see that, the path that you're on is not necessarily like a linear trajectory, that like many people have like you said, Alice, a non-traditional path to being a student. And so I think that's really helpful, especially if you're those that are out there, they're 18, 19, and 20 and think that you have to follow a particular path in a straight line. It doesn't have to be that way, right? As you can see from the panelists, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. The next question I'd like to go to is, please tell us about the application and interview process for your chosen healthcare program. Obviously, you all had to be undergraduates at some institution and then apply to whatever professional program that you're in. And so I think that a lot of participants that are in the exploratory phase about what kind of professions they want to be in, like what are the requirements? What are the admissions requirements? What are the application requirements? Like what is the 2 or 3 or 4 year plan for the courses that I would need to take? Is there a standardized test that I have to take? Is there a number of clinical hours that are required to get into the program that you are either in or that you've gone through? So we'll go to Michael.
Sure. So when I decided I wanted to go into physical therapy, the first step that I did was I looked up schools around the area that I might reasonably be able to get into that weren't necessarily out of state. On those school websites, they had a little list of prerequisites that I had to fill out. And a lot of them, like I mentioned before, my prior degree was in psychology, so there was no overlap. I went to Irvine Valley College. I made an appointment with one of the counselors, and we went over all of those requirements that I had to go over, and then the class equivalents from IVC. So I started down all of those classes. I made one small mistake. I took an extra class I didn't have to. But otherwise, it was a pretty streamlined process. Once I had all that done, I applied to Chapman University, and the actual application process was just sending in the paperwork, doing the observation hours I needed to do. And then they put me on the wait list, and I eventually got accepted.
What you said there was a set a number of hours. What is the number of hours is there a minimum number of hours that is required to apply to these competitive programs?
At the time, when I applied, it was actually optional. So they said 40 hours ideally, but they didn't have a way of checking that at the time. Nowadays, I've been speaking to some of the current students. They actually do require the 40 hours to be documented now. So 40 hours seems to be the magic number for physical therapy, at least for Chapman.
And then is that 40 hours as like shadowing a PT? Is that as a PT aid, or like can you describe like what that is
Uh,
and how one would get to get those hours? So I think that's like what a lot of students, I don't even know how that process works. Like how would you go about getting these hours?
yeah, so I'll tell you how I did it, and I'll tell you how other people did it. But yeah, you'd be shadowing some sort of professional in the field. Sometimes you can work as an aide in a physical therapy clinic. We have a lot of aides who work in my clinic who are doing just that. What I did was I put on a suit and then I walked into a bunch of physical therapy clinics, handed them my resume, and I said, "Hey, I'm applying for a physical therapy program. Do you mind if I observe a little bit?" I think 6 people said no, and one of them said yes. So I stuck with that one guy in a little outpatient clinic in the middle of nowhere, and he gave me the observation hours as well as a lot of tips for what to keep in mind.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Oh, and then
Um,
what other people do is sometimes like hospitals or something will have actual programs you can apply to where you can observe, but I think the other professionals would know more about that than me.
okay. Alice, I'll go to you. Application process, interview process for your chosen program.
Okay. I'll start with the caveat. I think similar to Catherine, I was applying during COVID in 2020. So things were a little different back then, but probably more so just for the interview process than anything else. But you'll apply through the online portal ADSAS, which is like the Associated American Dental Schools application service. So that's where your primary application will go. So all the meat of it, your academic history, all your Gen Chem, OChem, physics, all those classworks, your academic history, your work history, demographic information, volunteer experience, extracurriculars, that's all going to go onto ADSAS as your primary application. In addition to that, some schools may require you to fill out supplemental applications. So you may have additional questions or written responses that you may need to submit. So every school is going to be a little different. So like Michael mentioned, check their websites, check for each school and see if they have any unique requirements for those specific schools. We do have a DAT, so it's much like the MCAT, but just for dental school. So it's the dental admissions test. Ideally, you would want to take this and have your score ready by the time you submit your ASAS application. But it is possible to submit that DAT score afterward. You just need to let the schools know that you intend to take it, so that they know to look out for your scores once those are available. Um, Letters of rec, typically that's around 3 letters. In some combination, like 2 from science-based professors and hopefully 1 from a dentist. Speaking of dentists, ideally you would want to have some shadowing hours. The magic number is usually around 100 or so. Of course, the more the merrier, but it's just to show the schools that you've seen what it's like to be, in the dental field, what you do on a daily basis, and it sort of helps reinforce your interest in the area as well. So the more shadowing hours, the better. You can do it like Michael did and just drop in places. If you've been seeing your dentist regularly, that's a great place to start too. Just be like, hey, I'm interested. If you're willing to volunteer and help, just like clean the operatories and help out in the office, that may help you get a yes as well. And I believe right now a lot of schools are returning to in-person interviews, although some schools may retain some online aspects. So for my school, USC, they also had an online component. It's the Cura assessment. It's like a pre-recorded interview process. But again, every school is going to be a little bit different. So just make sure you pay attention to all those little details, check their websites, read their emails, and when in doubt, find someone to ask.
Great, thanks. Ignacio, I'll pop it over to you. Application and interview process for
Mhm.
medical school.
Yeah, the process is honestly exactly the same as Alice said for her. It's just the portal system that we use is a little different. So we have our it's AMCAS, so that's to apply to MD schools. And then to apply to DO schools, which are doctors of osteopathic medicine. So they get the exact same training as the MD doctors get, but they additionally get a little bit more training in like what they call osteopathic medicine, which is more they do more like manipulations like with their hands. So it's like a little bit of extra training that they do. There's also another portal, which is it's called TMD SAS, which is for people who can apply to like the Texas schools. So if you have ties to Texas, it's actually a like, really great opportunity because the medical school over there is a lot cheaper. But you really need to have like strong ties to Texas. So like you're from there or you have family there. But otherwise, like there's a core like classes that you have to complete, like biology, chemistry, biochem. You can have any major as long as you complete those classes. And I actually completed like almost all of those classes except for biochem at community college. So I thought that was something that was pretty cool because I did have to like go back and complete some prereqs and I did that like at OCC or Golden West. So um, as far as like interviews, so like there's also a secondary application. So after you submit your application to through the main portal and you select which schools you want to apply to, they send you secondary applications that are a little bit more specific like to that school. Interviews were online as well, and they've stayed online because they realized
Oh,
that it's just, it's a lot more convenient for everyone and saves you a lot of money from having to travel to different places. Um, as far as like requirements, I'd say that shadowing, there's no like number of minimum hours that you need for shadowing. I think it's actually one of the less important things for applications. I think it's just important to know to shadow just for you to get a good idea of whether this is something that you want to do. But clinical hours are definitely a lot more important. Um, I think as far as like how many hours you have, it really depends on like your path. Like there's a lot of requirements when you're applying like if you're trying to do this all within like 4 years, it's really tough because you have to volunteer, you have to get clinical hours, you have to study for the medical college entrance exam. And so I feel like schools are pretty understanding if you don't have as many hours as like other people might. But one thing that a lot of people do is they take what's called like gap years, which is where they might graduate and then take some time off to like study for that entrance exam or maybe to get more clinical experience. And if that's the case, then they might want you to have a little bit more experience, like more hours doing different things. So it really just depends. I feel like they do a really good job at evaluating you holistically. They look at your experiences, even just like prior like jobs that you've had, everything's like really important. So it's hard to say like what the minimum is, but that kind of gives you an idea. I know a lot of students get really overwhelmed about all the things they have to do. But I think as long as you do your best and try to get some experience, I think you'll be okay.
Thanks for that insight. Catherine, application and interview process for nursing school?
Yeah, I could probably only speak, well, okay. So the process depends. Obviously there's those of you who might be currently getting maybe like prerequisites to go transfer to a different, like say a university and whatnot. I just highly suggest, I feel like every program is probably an ever-changing thing. Obviously we all live on the internet now, so always check the start. There's like doing mad construction, so if you can hear it, I'm so sorry. Definitely check the website because then they'll have updated things like within the last like I think year that I was in my nursing program, they had already changed the curriculum and what the prerequisites were going to be. So I think if you're interested in any sort of program, just check their website. Because that's also kind of how I found Saddleback and IBC is like they have awesome websites that are constantly updating. And I think also it kind of gives you an indication of what kind of school you might be going to. Like if they're not gonna try to give you enough information, you might feel like
Hmm.
maybe that's not a good fit for me. Anyway, but yeah, nursing school, I think there's plenty of routes. You could do it through going to community college and getting your ADN degree, which is like an associate's, and there's plenty of bridge programs that let you basically marry that associate's degree with a bachelor's degree. Those are usually a lot quicker and much cheaper, in my opinion. And I still think you get almost the exact same education. I think that's one thing I definitely thought about. If I had basically decided to go back to school, I would have wholeheartedly gone through community college first and then transferred into somewhere else. Um, and I feel like going to Saddleback and IBC really helped prep me for what was to come for nursing school. But yeah, there's obviously master's entry programs for those of us who've already gotten our degrees um, in different fields. You also have traditional bachelor's programs where if you're not an undergrad yet, you could transfer into. I think there's also accelerated bachelor's programs. So in the event, if you decide like, oh, I don't really, you want to get a degree in something else and try your foot in a different door, there's plenty of programs out there that are available and plenty of schools. I think just making sure you like deep dive and look those things up prior to applying. And also feel free to always reach out to those programs. They always have dedicated people who are the admissions or like the recruiting staff. They always love to tell you and give you more information. And they always do Zoom info sessions. So that's
Can you speak to like, is there a standardized test that you need to take for the admissions
uh
process?
depending on the program. So I do know there are other programs that are more like privately owned, like trade schools. So like I think like West Coast, um, American Career College.
Hmm.
Those specific ones will, I think they have you take the TEAS test, which is
Okay.
kind of like a standardized, it's like math, reading, and like a little bit of science. But I do think different programs will have different requirements. Like some of them have, oh, you need to take, I don't think any of them had us take the GRE, but me being very lazy and not wanting to study for tests, I literally looked for all the programs that didn't require those things. And there was like a good handful of them that you could still apply to. Um, but yeah, I don't know about Saddleback. I just know that their nursing program, like the window for the application is only maybe like a week or two long, and it's a very quick. Like they close the application like right away. So if you're interested in doing that route, I think highly have all your ducks in a row and put them together. I think for experience, um, I mean, during COVID, I worked in the hospital, so I do feel like it gave me sort of more of, I wouldn't say an advantage, but I do think extracurriculars are very important. And I will say, like, many of the like at least of my colleagues in school, a lot of them never had stepped foot in a hospital prior to getting into nursing school. A lot of them kind of either worked at clinics or were doing research or they were just like working jobs. But I think obviously having worked at a hospital might, you think maybe it might give you an advantage, but you never know. I think it's all ultimately up to you, up to how well your academics look, kind of like your family history. Well, I wouldn't say family history, but like history. There's like a lot of elements at play.
Is there a minimum number or magic number of hours that an applicant to a competitive nursing program should have?
Mm, I don't know.
Okay.
I would say like more than 4.
Okay.
I mean, I worked at the hospital, and when I applied, I did get waitlisted at UCLA, so I was kind of like devastated. But I mean, ultimately, I got in. But yeah, even with having worked at the hospital for almost like a year or two prior to applying, I mean, I didn't feel like that gave me much of an advantage, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks. And then, Michael, I may have missed it. Was there a standardized test that one would need to take for PT school?
I just didn't say it. I forgot. It was the GRE for me,
Okay.
but I think they actually stopped requiring that now
Okay.
for new students now.
Okay.
Oh, I
Thanks.
forgot to add. Sorry. You definitely need letter of recs. That was like one huge thing that I think is very important for your schools. So letter of recs are just sort of like recommendations. I suggest maybe getting one from a professor that you know pretty well, who kind of knows you very well, because then you'll be able to showcase who you are to the school. If you maybe have one from your job, you could do one from your job. But yeah, letter of recs are very important. That's what
Okay.
I forgot to mention.
Thanks. And then one last thing is kind of off script here, but Ignacio mentioned it about the gap year. Anybody can answer this. It doesn't have to be Ignacio. The gap years I see in the last few years are really popular. Do programs expect you to be productive during the gap year? What is the gap year used for? Is it like to take a break in between school and applying to programs, or is it to use to strengthen your application if maybe you're not as strong of an applicant? What do schools or what do programs look for in this gap year? If you take a gap year, like if you just say you're taking off and go backpacking through Europe, I mean, is that frowned upon? Like, what is the gap year? I mean, how does it benefit one, and how should it be used? It can be anybody that answers. Anybody?
I'll give
Oh,
it.
yeah, God, Alex.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna make a joke, but I don't think that's a good idea.
Oh, okay.
I was just
I
like,
was
just lie.
uh, I'll give it a shot. I want to say you can do all of the above or any of those. As
Okay.
long as you are sort of, I guess, discovering more about yourself and more about your aspirations. So, like, even if you go backpacking across Europe, maybe somehow those experiences helped you determine a path in life. As long as you're able to express that, I think it can still be considered productive.
Okay.
Granted, I think the more productive you are, the better it would be. So if you did like get some more clinical experience, get some more shadowing hours, whatnot, work experience, I think that would probably strengthen your application more as well. But like I know a lot of people who took gap years or mini gap years, or like what I did, where I just went off on a different path for a while. Like
Okay.
recently, I had a friend who got into law school after he stopped working for a year or so, and he just explained it as, I was trying to really decide where I want to go in life, and that way he's able to show like, oh, I'm really determined to go into this field now after that gap year. So I think however you decide to spend it, as long as you're able to use that as an opportunity to improve yourself and you're able to express that to the programs, I think it'll be beneficial. But that's
Okay.
just my opinion on it.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else have any insight on that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think most
Okay.
people who do take gap years is usually to strengthen their applications. It could be people who maybe had a lot of responsibilities in undergrad, like maybe worked a lot and they feel like they need, maybe a little bit more clinical hours, or maybe they'd like a little bit more time to study for like the entrance exam. Um, I think one common thing a lot of people do is like they'll take that time after they graduate to study for the entrance exam, and after they're done with the exam, they'll go on some big trip or do something. But even if you were to just take, I wouldn't recommend like taking the full year off, but I think it's important to still do something. But I mean, if you're a really strong applicant, like you put in the work those first 4 years, you probably can take the year off and still apply. So I think it's very situational. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Michael, did you have any insight or?
I don't really know if the gap year applies to me. Because after I graduated with my bachelor's back in 2013, I just started working for like 8 years. So I didn't take time off to do extra schooling and then take time off to train. I was just working an office job.
Okay.
Well, a couple
I
different.
just didn't know if like somebody used the gap year to like they wanted to pursue their stand-up comedy career or play semi-professional baseball and then like, oh, okay, that didn't work out. Like I mean, I don't know if that's like viewed as like
I
frowned
don't think
upon or not, but I don't
I don't
know.
think it's as much as a taboo as some people
Okay.
used to make it out to be.
Okay. Okay. That's encouraging. Thank you. Next question. What are the three most important qualities that one should have if they are going to pursue a career in your respective fields? Let's go with Michael. I haven't heard from you in a while. Three most important qualities.
Uh, well, right now I work with a primarily geriatric population. So I would say the three most important things are empathy.
Hmm.
You have to be able to understand what they're dealing with. The chronic pain is not something that young people are usually familiar with. But I was in a unique situation where I didn't know chronic pain and how to deal with it and how it messes with your mind and your life. Creativity to help figure out interesting ways to go about things, to keep things fun and engaging so people stick around and they do what they're supposed to be doing. And then also patience. When you work in the medical field, you work with people who are going through something not fun. So they're usually in a worse mood. They're going to yell at you sometimes. Sometimes they might scream at you or just tell you really sad stories. But just try to be there for them because that's sometimes what you really need.
Great, thanks. Ignacio, three most important qualities.
Hmm. Yeah, I think kind of like Michael said, like patience. I think alongside patience, like resilience.
Mm.
You're under a lot of pressure when you're in medical school, and as well as other health professions, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and you need to be able to like overcome those mistakes. You're going to get a lot of feedback. Sometimes it can be hard feedback to take, but you need to be able to take that in, and I guess just try to come out stronger on the other side. Like, don't let that bring you down too much. Um, I'd say being able to be very flexible, like things are constantly changing. Like one
Mm.
week you're at one site, one week you're at another. You're working with different people. Different people expect like different things from you,
Mm.
so that can be a little bit challenging. And then definitely just empathy. That it's really important. It's just when you're in the hospital, you need to be able to like see your patients for what they really are, and it's just another human being that's there, and sometimes it's the worst day of their life, and you want to be there to be able to help them.
Great, thanks. Alice?
I would say perseverance or resilience, just like Ignacio said, so you can keep calm and carry on through any circumstance that shows up in your chair, no matter how easy or difficult or straightforward or unexpected. Whatever shows up in your office, in your chair, you have to be able to stay calm, keep your composure, and then that way everyone else around you can also stay calm, and you can proceed smoothly and look for a solution as well. And this applies for both dental school because you're going to be drinking out of a fire hose during dental school. In terms of didactics, you're going to be spending hours and hours in simulation lab, and you're going to be spending eons practicing your hand skills on top of that. And this applies in practice as well. When you're out there in the real world, you don't have your faculty to back you up anymore. It's all, your responsibility, and you have to know to keep calm and persevere through any hardship. Another one would definitely be empathy, to better understand to better connect with your patients, and ultimately that helps you serve your community better too. So, for example, many patients will tell me, I hate going to the dentist. I get that a lot. And, instead of taking it personally or taking offense, empathize, think about their perspective. We have sharp, pointy things. There are horror stories out there about our profession. They may have past experiences that may scare them. But once you start to empathize and you start seeing it from their perspective, then you start seeing ways of making their experiences more positive. And that may ultimately allow for better long-term outcomes for your patients because then they'll feel more comfortable. You can deliver better care. So empathy is a good one. And also humility too. And just for those out there, remember that dental care is healthcare. And healthcare is all about the patients and it's all about the community that you serve. So there's not really much room for ego or arrogance or condescension. And this includes things like being open to feedback. I think that was Ignacio who mentioned that earlier, and becoming a lifelong learner. It's called practicing medicine, right? Or practicing dentistry because we're always learning. And in that way, we can better serve our community too. So just approach it with humility. Was that three? I think that was three.
If it wasn't, it was enough to be three. That's fantastic.
There we go.
Catherine.
Okay. I guess I had four, but I'll do my top
Yeah,
three. Similar to Alice and Ignacio, I was gonna say like be a sponge, um, open to feedback and just absorbing things. The healthcare field's basically driven with evidence-based practice, which requires ongoing learning. I don't know. I think for most of us, we have to do like continuing education, which basically allows us to like renew our licensures, but also keeps us up to date. So if you're somebody who enjoys kind of learning a lot, like new things, like, oh my God, there's like a new method to do something. Like the healthcare field is literally your oyster. Um, I guess another thing is like know that you're growing and so is the world. So sometimes too, like whatever you're learning is new to you is probably also new to everybody else. But also know that you're probably at the forefront of it because you're the one that's able to access this type of information. Um, but yeah, just know it might take time for the world to also start to move in a certain way as well. Another one would be like practicing what I call like radical acceptance, which is kind of accepting the pain that there are certain things that are the way that they are. And knowing that like you're doing your best, and so is the other person, if that makes sense. And I think another very important quality to have is just to find people who kind of don't ask for anything from you, because you're going to enter into a field that requires constantly being of service to others, constantly needing to practice empathy, compassion. And there's just like a ton of like probably a lot of frustrations that you might have, especially if somebody who has a lot of empathy and has a lot of these issues. So like compassion fatigue is like a huge issue. And as somebody who's going to become a future provider, I think just having people who around you who kind of don't ask for anything from you has helped a lot. Like sort of like finding spaces where you kind of could just exist. Like I have a really good girlfriend. She and I literally will just like hang out, but we like are nonverbal and then we're just in each other's space. Which I think helps a lot of people, or at least it helps me with like replenishing kind of sort of having been constantly at the hospital and then having people call lights and people calling, or being like in the clinic or in the office where you're like constantly having to help people and being around a lot of people. Sometimes I think it helps to have people who kind of are like, it just exist with me. I don't need advice. I don't need anything. I just want to be around you. So I think that is a really happy thing to do.
It's great. And then before we turn it over to open question and answer session with the participants, the last question that was on the list, and it kind of echoes a lot of what you've already said for all of you. But what advice would you give to college students who'd want to pursue a career in this healthcare field? So I know that you've given a lot of advice, especially with that most recent question and answer, but was there anything that was not yet said that you would like to share, advice that you give to college students that hasn't already been said on your part, on behalf of your profession? And we'll stick with Catherine since you're already there. We'll go with you. And if we can limit our responses to about 90 seconds, I just want to make sure that we have enough time so that we can do question and answers with the participants.
I guess the disclaimer is that you'll probably be working in the American healthcare system, which is driven by capitalism, and you're gonna find that if it's incredibly frustrating. Because you'll meet a lot of people who kind of like they get really sick because one, they didn't have access to care, or they basically have ran out of insurance, or they have all these other issues that come into play. It is like unfortunately a very giant hill I will likely die on, unfortunately. If there is some way, shape, or form that we can figure out a way to like reform this, I don't know, get rid of insurance companies. I don't know. I'm not trying to incite any sort of thing, but yeah, I think that's just gonna like that's kind of been the long-standing issue, at least or gripe that I've had since entering the healthcare field is just sort of seeing the back end of like constantly like a lot of people get really sick because they can't afford the healthcare that they kind of really need. And it's crazy because you have people willing to do anything to be healthy, and yet like you have all these other entities at play that kind of thwart health and wellness. So yeah, I think definitely secondary prevention, making sure that you eat well if you can, exercise, and take care of your body. That's it.
Thanks. Ignacio, any final words of advice for college students that want to pursue a career in the medical field?
Yeah, I'd say that my biggest advice is to take your time. Like, don't rush things. It's really hard to recover from like having, let's say you rush things and you have poor grades. It's really challenging to recover afterwards. You know, sometimes you have to pay for like really expensive like post-bac programs or master programs. I think it's better to just take your time, like enjoy the process, do extracurriculars that you enjoy. I'd say that the medical school admissions, like they love to learn about like, hobbies that you have, or they like to see that you've done other things before too. Um, and you'll just be happier along the process because, in my personal opinion, I feel like it's too much to do in just 4 years. So that's my best advice.
Oh yeah, solid. Thank you. Michael?
I guess my perspective would be more for actual students who are pursuing it as opposed to actual professionals in the field.
Right.
Enjoy your time while it's happening. A lot of people think about medical school or graduate studies as something that's 100% stressful the entire time, but you have downtime, a lot more downtime than you're going to have after you graduate and join the workforce. Take that time, appreciate it when it happens, but then when you're doing your schooling, when you're doing your education, really focus on it because that's the most useful information. They're spoon feeding you, but sometimes people will just open up an iPad or watch something in the middle of class or something, and they're missing out on important information. Uh, Relax when you can and study hard when you need to.
Great. And then Alice will finish off with you.
Well, amen to what everyone has said so far. I guess I would say for dental school, don't worry too much about fitting into like a cookie cutter depiction of an ideal applicant. Like, you don't need to have lived and breathed dentistry since you were a baby. Don't worry. Take me, for example. I'm a very non-trad route. I'm 35 right now, and this is my first year as a dentist. So take your time, right? You don't need to rush into things. Experience life, live it, enjoy yourself. All of those experiences you are going to bring to your program. You're going to bring to your patients, right? You're going to be able to better connect with your patients and show that, hey, like I'm a real person. I'm not just a robot that graduated from school, right? A lot of patients these days are looking for a human to interact with, right? Not a robot dentist or anything like that. So just, take your time, don't rush things, enjoy life, and you will then bring much joy to both your classmates, your patients, and you will enrich your community better that way too. And one last fun example, one of my classmates, he was a DJ. So he DJ'd on the weekends. And guess what? He DJ'd for our class party and it was absolutely lit. So I'm just saying, just have some fun while you're out there, live your life. Don't destroy yourself in the process of pursuing these things. So yeah, keep it real.
Fantastic. Thanks. I want to use the remainder of our time to open it up to questions. Lynn, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. We only
Huh.
have 2 questions so far in the chat.
Okay.
The third one's coming now.
Okay.
But the first one is I'm currently in the pre-med pathway, and I was wondering on how a student were able to balance their time with studying, both in pre-med and later on in graduate school, like med school, alongside with their personal life.
I guess we'll open it up to Ignacio for that
Yeah.
one. But I mean, I'm sure it applies to like all the other
Mhm.
professionals as well. But Ignacio?
Yeah, I think, definitely like a lot what Michael was saying, like just, there is time. I think you just need to really like prioritize like your time, I feel like there tends to be a lot of time that we waste on maybe on things that don't benefit us too much. And so I'd say um, when you are pursuing, a career in the healthcare space, um, you need to, dedicate your time to studying, like Michael was saying, try to make the most of when you go to class, pay attention or try to learn while you're there. Especially like right now I'm on rotation, so like and like I have a family, so it's hard for me to really study when I get home. So I really do my best to learn while I'm there in the hospital. Um, and yeah, just try to enjoy the process, find the things that you enjoy that really help like fill your cup or like, restore you so that you can continue working and studying. And sometimes that's, going out, and exercising or spending time with a friend or doing an activity, like an extracurricular activity that you really enjoy. Sometimes that helps like recharge your battery.
Anybody else want to add on to that? I mean, I think it's solid advice that can be applied to any graduate school situation that one would be in. Lynn, what's the next question?
Oops. The next question is what would the pathway from community college to medical school look like? And what do you think is the best major to help prep for med school?
So, so the typical pathway would be you start off at community college and then you transfer to a four-year university. You'll complete your bachelor's and then you'll apply to medical school through like the portal system that we mentioned earlier. As far as majors, I mean, if you want to make your pathway faster than doing something like biology or chemistry, or nutrition, you can also do like exercise science. Like there's a lot of overlap with those. But I think the best major would be to just, really choose something that you really enjoy, and you can always add extra classes, or take, an extra year. I don't think there's like a best one to choose.
Just as an aside, any of you can answer this. What's the most far off major from any one of your classmates? You're like, whoa, I wouldn't have expected that from somebody in dental school or nursing or PT or medical school. Just anybody? Alice, you had like a degree in music before, but anybody else have like a what? Like in like weird or unusual majors from their classmates? Oh, okay.
Honestly, I think psychology was the weird one for a lot of people, especially if you're going into a field where they focus on physical muscles and bones and stuff, as opposed to working on the brain and the mind.
Yeah.
But there is, no matter what field you go into, there's going to be some sort of overlap. The things that you take from one field, you can apply to another one, even if they're not directly related. I spent a lot of time talking to people, uh, and my degree in psychology helped out with that, even though no overlap in the prerequisites, in case anybody else was planning on doing that.
But nobody in any of your schools had like a degree in art history or
Most people went
Greek
like
civilization or anything like that? No.
history or something
Okay.
like that.
All right, just thought I'd ask. Lynn, next question.
Yes. Any tips or creative ways any of you found to finance your education and minimize student debt?
Okay, anybody want to take the lead on this one? Alice, Catherine, Michael?
I'll go.
Yep, thank you.
Let's see. So finances and education. For the first year of nursing school, I did live at home with my family, albeit it was at the cost of my mental health and studying, and it was a 2 hour commute. It was crazy. I would say yes, definitely what Ignacio said, community college first. Try to get all those prereqs done, and you could definitely do them at community college. It's extremely affordable. I think also I was working at the hospital, and I think I made so at UCLA they have programs where they can help kids sign up for EBT programs if you have a job. So I did go into one of those seminars, and I did sign myself up for EBT because I was making a rather low income. Um, and then yeah, if it's possible to work, that's amazing. Obviously, at the end of the day, these programs are going to be very expensive, and there are chances that you might have to take loans out. So if obviously do your FAFSA. Um, and then also there's like plenty of online scholarships. I think your schools can also offer some scholarships. Um, I think just applying to as many of those, it's a lot to do, but obviously you guys have ChatGPT now. I wouldn't say recommend it, but I'm just saying you have those tools now that help with, I guess, industrializing your process, if that makes sense. But yeah, definitely look into uh, any sort of scholarship programs that they might have, as
Okay.
well as the EBT program that we have.
Anybody else have any other creative? And Ignacio, I want to get to you in a second because I saw you put that link in the chat. But anybody else have any other creative ways about financing their education?
Maybe it's not the most creative, but talk to your school. Chapman University, they had a special program that actually let students work for the campus, doing small jobs around the area on the campus, like manning desks, doing laundry, cleaning the exam rooms, and they made some money. They also had students who worked for the admissions office too, so then they would be the ones who were admitting new students into the and screening people and for future programs. So yeah, they were making money while they were working as a student, and they worked around the schedules because they knew they were students.
Mhm. Anybody else? Ignacio, what's that link that you dropped in the chat?
Yeah, so this link, it's called the National Health Service Corps, and they give scholarships. They'll cover your full tuition and even give you a stipend. But you have to make a commitment to serving, in like working like underserved areas. So I believe they have scholarships for like dental programs, for nursing, and then for medicine, if you're like committed to doing like primary care or like substance use treatment, because those are like areas that they really need help in. They'll pay for your medical school and give you a stipend.
Mm,
And if you don't do that going into medical school, they have like loan repayment programs that you can do afterwards too.
okay. Alice, did we miss anything? Is there anything that you wanted to contribute on the finances side?
I don't think much new. I think someone mentioned scholarships. There's the Health Professions Scholarship Program, I think HPSP, that I think is probably similar to what Ignacio mentioned. You do have to commit to a certain number of years of service, though, depending on how many years of financial assistance you get, but they pay for everything. Or they can pay for everything. So if that's like a viable option for you, it could be very helpful financially. It's very competitive, though. I did not apply for it, but I've heard that it's pretty competitive to get. A lot of scholarships. Take the community college route if you can, not just for the finances, but like I'm not trying to kiss up to Professor Peter here, but I enjoyed my community classes a lot more than when I was at UCI. I feel like at UCI or the bigger universities, you tend to get lost in those bigger class sizes. At a community college, it feels much more, intimate. You get to know everyone better. You get to know your professors, so you're able to get more help, more advice, things like that. So I think it would be beneficial not just for finances, but for those social aspects as well. And although it is advised for you to not work during dental school, I did have many friends who still did. So if you can pick up like a shift here or there on the weekend or whenever you can handle it, I think that can help chip away at the
Are you talking
cost.
about working a dental related job or something
No,
that's
just
just
working anything, just
just to
working
get
any
paid?
side
Okay.
job, yeah.
Okay.
I had a friend who tutored on the
Mhm.
side. I did have a friend who was a hygienist, and she would pick up a shift here and
Mhm.
there just to help out, but definitely don't work more than that unless you can handle it, unless you can persevere through it. So scholarships, pick up some shifts if you can. You'll most likely have to take out some loans, especially for dental school, because dental school I think it's more expensive than medical school at this point. And apply to state schools if you can. So try to avoid private schools. It's a little ironic because I went to USC, but try to apply to public schools if you can. They're going to be a lot cheaper.